Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Down Syndrome Center podcast. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Kishore Valodi, and after a long period of time, I'm actually recording a podcast in person. So if you're hearing any audio differences, that's why. Thankfully, we're able to meet in person so much more frequently now, and I met our podcast guest today just incidentally. I was live here in Pittsburgh, and there was an event for a group called the Friendship Circle, and I actually hadn't heard very much about them. I didn't know very much about what they did, but as I experienced that, as we'll talk about here in the podcast, I knew that this was an organization I definitely wanted to highlight on the podcast for all of you as well. But before we get into the podcast, I think it's important for me to introduce our guest, or have our guest introduce himself. Rabbi Mordy Rudolph, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about who you are and what you do and why you love working with this population.
Sure. My name is Rabbi Mordy Rudolph, as mentioned. I'm the executive director of the Friendship Circle. My background, prior to the Friendship Circle, I was ordained as a rabbi. My wife, Rivki, was a preschool teacher. We met in 2000. We married in 2005. We started the Friendship Circle in 2006, both from Pittsburgh. We felt the need for enhancing the overall Jewish community. Was really kind of the perspective that we came at it from. Friendship Circle it was founded as a Jewish organization. We'd heard about the overall model and mission, largely based on the Michigan model. The Friendship Circle was founded in Michigan initially, West Bloomfield, Michigan. And we felt like that was something that we could perhaps bring to Pittsburgh. We had a series of reservations. One of them was that we really had no previous experience or connection to the disability community. We also we were just kind of like a little new to all of that, and something about it being kind of like a disability organization was something we felt like we just didn't have that kind of experience or exposure to. What resonated with us back then, number one, was that this is about not just the disability community, but it's about the community at large, and how what the Friendship Circle represents as an overall mission. And we were again able to tweak that and create our own version of that. Each one was able to be tailored to its own community. So we're our own board, our own 501c3, and our own mission statement, kind of able to create our own organization essentially, but have that networking ability with other cities and other Friendship Circles, which is really nice. It gives us kind of a nice balance. But what resonated with us was how it's about enhancing the entire community. And what was interesting, again, and I say us because Rivki and I really started it together and both found a passion in it, was that we didn't have any exposure, as I said, to people with disabilities prior. And that was something that the more we learned about this, the more we realized like that's what's wrong with it. And we grew up kind of, again, in the Jewish community, where tzedakah, the idea of like, whether it's charity or kind of a good deed for someone else, love for your fellow man is a basic, obviously a universal tenet, but a Jewish tenet. So we knew all of that, and yet the people we knew in our social circles were really just like us. And it felt like the Friendship Circle was a great venue or opportunity for us to get to know others and people who weren't just like us, and to broaden our community and to ensure that our community as a whole just becomes kind of a more welcoming place for all, and for everyone to be valued and respected members of our community.
So as someone who's listening to the podcast who maybe doesn't know anything about Friendship Circle, what it does, give me an idea. So I'm sitting inside of a building that has a big sign in front of it called Friendship Circle, but what all is happening? What is it that you do exactly? Sure. If you could.
So we create inclusive programming, or we create social programming really for people of all abilities. We will run the gamut as to what those events are. So some are leadership training for teen populations. Some are mommy and me get-togethers, or a gymnastics club for young kids as young as 3 or 4 years old to age 8 or so. Like some young children will get together just for what typical young kids would do. Kids will get together through middle and high school for cooking or art or some physical fitness, a sports club, holiday programs, an end of summer camp, a winter camp, really series of any opportunities for socialization is something that is in our wheelhouse. And we what we do is we try to ensure that it's something that is mutually advantageous, so that it's not something that there'll be hand-holding. It's not something that someone can do better than anyone else. Bowling has always been something that we've done really since the beginning. It was kind of our first club, actually. And the idea was that like bowling is something that everyone is able to bowl, and you have good bowlers who may not have disabilities, and you have good bowlers who may have disabilities, and that doesn't have anything to do with kind of a way to delineate them. And what was important to us early on, and I'd say kind of helped perhaps differentiate from the original model that we had heard about, was that initial model was a little more about like people with disabilities and ensuring that they're kind of a part of the community. But there was like this volunteer, call it special friend, and I quote special friend component to it, that was something that we worked with some professional advisors, and we specifically have one professional advisor, Laura Marshak, who's kind of been part of the Friendship Circle from the beginning and gave us that professional guidance really from the moment we started. And she said to us, like, this is good, but it can be so much better. And we could really create a space where all teens, all kids, all members are members. And so that's what we refer to all of our kids are as today as members. And for a while it was like we had friends and volunteers, and it felt like, why give people this sort of like upper hand of like, you're the volunteer and you're helping this less fortunate child, so to speak, that realistically, number one, we see that the patronization does not resonate long term. Number two is that we're really kind of shortchanging some of those quote unquote volunteers. Like a typical kid from a typical school who's coming to the Friendship Circle has so much to gain from that experience in his or her life trajectory. And so if we're going to say to them, like, you're here, you're volunteering, you're helping this less fortunate child who unfortunately can't have a friend, what you're doing is you're taking away from what this kid can be gaining from that experience, and you're telling them that they're only giving. And what we liked about we were talking about the name, the Friendship Circle, is that the idea of a circle is that it doesn't have a beginning, it doesn't have an end, it doesn't have a more important or less important part of it, and therefore everyone gives to it and receives from it equally. And so that's kind of really what's been like a core tenet of us as an organization. And so when we look at all of our programs, we do things that are, all of our programs are completely inclusive, and all of our programs we ensure that it's something that everyone can benefit from. It's not something that, like, when we're cooking, we're all cooking together. It's not like you're going to help someone else cook. We do have obviously opportunities for like older teens to help out in younger children programs, those kinds of things. But it's really about trying to find opportunities that everybody can gain from.
So you mentioned something that I think for many of our listeners would be probably made them crack a smile, as it did for me too, and that I suspect that there is a bowling gene on the 21st chromosome. People with Down syndrome that I know, my brother, his friends, love bowling. So when you said bowling, it really struck me. So just as an example, let's say it's a bowling event that's happening. Just so we fully understand so there will be people who have disabilities, people who don't have obvious disabilities. What are they all doing during bowling time? Give me an idea of what that looks like.
They're all bowling. I mean, they're really all bowling together. We kind of we'll have like a little welcome group, make sure that like we put our teams together and everyone knows who they're with, because it's all largely, I would say, and we're kind of getting out of this a little bit in some workforce development stuff we're doing now, but largely it's just about that socialization. So it's really just a means to connect. Bowling is great, but whether that's cooking or art or whatever, they're really just we do a book club. It's just kind of like excuses to connect with each other and to socialize.
And do those events happen here on site, or
many of them do? But we really, when we started, we obviously didn't have the building that we have today. This building was purchased in 2013, and we moved in 2016. But we were nervous, I would say, even from when we were getting to our building, because until then, it was not a sustainable model, but it was about getting all around the community, going to bowling lanes in Harmerville and Squirrel Hill at the time. There was a bowling lanes, cooking at the JCC, at Winchester Thurston. We would rent venues all over town, which again, it was not a sustainable model, because the more events that were happening, the harder that was to execute. But that was the model at the time. And then once we found this space that we've now moved into, our concern was that we're going to kind of further isolate people with disabilities. And obviously the core mission is that inclusivity. And in having a space like this, we obviously did our utmost to make sure that this is a space that's attractive to everyone, and that teens will want to come here and work and hang out and be, whether or not they have a disability. And our concern was that this not be a space where like, the families or kids with disabilities go to hang out, but teens, they only go if they're going to help somebody else. And so we created a space that is on the main drag in Squirrel Hill, in the Squirrel Hill community in Pittsburgh, and but at the same time was we wanted our windows open. We wanted it to have that appearance of it being really open to the community and not just like behind a wall, but really a space that we were very intentional that not everything should still happen here, and that we want. It obviously gives us that home base. It gives us that headquarters. It gives us that flexibility to be able to offer whatever we can offer. But at the same time, we'll still do a sports league at the JCC. We'll still do bowling at various bowling lanes around Pittsburgh. And it doesn't kind of limit us to this space.
Yeah, and it's a neat space for those who live locally here in the Pittsburgh area. It's a really neat space here in Squirrel Hill, and you can tell right from the outside. It's a very welcoming kind of look to it, which is fantastic. So you had mentioned earlier that the Friendship Circle came out of almost like a Jewish background. You were saying, is this something that is only for children or people or adults who come from a Jewish faith background, or is it open for all at this?
No, so when we first started, and that was the perspective we came at it from, and then realized early on that like this is really something that can enhance the community overall. So while it has that kind of like foundation initially, our organization is open to all. We have members of all faiths, all backgrounds, and as well as part of the leadership, our staff, our board, it's kind of an inclusive from all those perspectives.
And when you say inclusion, it's not just in word. I have to just say, when I first was introduced to your group, and there was a gala event that you had several months ago, it was an amazing experience, even for someone who has the idea of inclusion so deeply ingrained within me, and how important that is for us all to just recognize that we're one community that should be growing together. To actually experience that in a very real way in a large venue where we were at, and being able to see those with disabilities, those who didn't have obvious disabilities, everyone just kind of equally having a meal together and enjoying the activities that you had planned that day together. It was really amazing, and I want to commend you for the work that you're doing here in the community. I guess as you see where the Friendship Circle is now, and you have dreams or visions of where you think it may be, what do you think is on the horizon for you all?
I mean, everybody who's part of Friendship Circle kind of has a role to play in the Friendship Circle's future, if you will. So like, for example, like what we try to impart into our teens is that their ability, like I said, to have some leadership qualities, and to utilize those, whether that's from an advocacy standpoint, a lobbying standpoint, just kind of like bringing it into wherever their next settings may be. So for example, we've seen instances where kids will graduate high school here and go on to college and really feel the need to start something like a Friendship Circle wherever it is that they are in higher education. But to empower them in that way is largely what it is. And then also like where next, I guess, can we impact the community in terms of inclusion? And so that's why I say like we're starting to get now into like the workforce side of things, where our adult population, as much as we create a number of social opportunities for them, we're looking now at like the workforce side of it. But really, like I like to say, it's vocation for the sake of socialization. You speak about how the interview process for the podcast was virtual, but to be in person is obviously a great thing. And that's what we see from just work in general. Like work is a social construct, and so it's us connecting with our colleagues and having that camaraderie, and that is where we feel like we can impact the workforce side of things for our adult members as they get older, and finding more venues for them. So whether that means them working in an outside location for another business entirely, but having that connection, or we're now in the process of establishing a bakery that will have that inclusive side to it too, where hiring adults of all abilities is really kind of going to be a core tenet of what that bakery is all about. We have Friendship Fellows, folks who work in our office, paid or unpaid, depending, in like an internship type capacity with a lot of our staff, just kind of like creating a little bit of that inclusive atmosphere felt throughout the organization.
So the bakery that I experienced at the gala is not yet fully open and operational, as you're saying at this point. I was hoping. That's why I came on site today.
Not yet. We're getting there.
That's wonderful. That is wonderful. I was my wife even said to me today, if you're going there, you see if they have their bakery open and buy some stuff and bring it home. I said, okay, we'll see.
Soon, very soon.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, and I think listeners from prior podcasts, you probably recall we've had some podcasts talking about just employment opportunities for people with Down syndrome, and specifically as we've discussed, and how many times the opportunity for inclusive employment is still not where it needs to be. In fact, it's woefully inadequate. So it's wonderful to hear that being a goal too for the Friendship Circle, to figure out ways that people with disabilities, people with Down syndrome included in that, of course, being able to get that kind of gainful employment is wonderful to hear. So with what you're doing here, obviously as a nonprofit organization, it's something that requires a lot of resources. And give me an idea of what all is required in terms of what, with your day-to-day activities, in terms of people who are willing to share their time or other means of being able to support what you do.
Okay, so I mean, things, because of the nature of our organization, first of all, is and again, we obviously met at a Friendship Circle fundraiser at our Friends All Around event. Because we try to blur those lines between all members who are part of Friendship Circle, we like to say there are no costs to any of our participants. Mm-hmm. It's obviously not free, but we don't charge anyone to participate in Friendship Circle, because if we do, obviously, then you start saying like, okay, you're a volunteer, you're a member. In fact, we had an instance with a friend of ours who had a relative in another location where there was another Friendship Circle that didn't adopt the philosophy that we have, and viewed it more as like that kind of, as mentioned, that volunteer helping special friend kind of model. And they tried signing up their child who was on the autism spectrum, and we're told that, like, there's this fee and there's this program and cost for registration, and it added up. I don't, maybe not an exorbitant amount, but it added up altogether to being, somewhat costly. And the family was kind of like expressing to us through their relative here that, it was a little frustrating how many costs and how much was associated with it. So my wife's sort of novel idea was to go back to them and say, you know what, this boy is 14 and he wants to volunteer. And what do you do? What is that kind of like call their bluff, so to speak, was really the suggestion. So, but whereas with us, we really don't, we don't charge for any of these activities. So that is kind of a growing need, and so the fundraising component of it is large. We have two kind of key fundraisers through the course of the year. So we have the Friends All Around event. Our next one is the first Sunday in November. We do a walk for friendship as well. And I'd say as great as the Friends All Around event is, the walk for friendship is even greater in terms of it's a recent creation. We actually started it. Our first one was 2020. We did a walk your way because obviously it was during COVID. But it's now become a real family-oriented event with bounce houses and entertainment and kind of like carnival style food, and there's also a walk. We're actually walking from our building here in Squirrel Hill to a local park, Whiteman Park. And the idea really is that we're just getting everybody together. All of our friends, all of our members. There's an initial kind of like buy-in fee, to get everyone to sign up and start a page. And hoping that people can, and as we've seen in the last couple of years, people really kind of putting their teams together, putting their pages together, raising money among their circles, and we found that to be a really kind of successful model. And again, realizing that while there are no costs to our participants, here's an opportunity for you to help ensure that we can kind of operate the way we do. And so that's been kind of like a great. As well as a number of local foundations who have stepped up and really supported Friendship Circle from the beginning, just in terms of like our annual needs. And but we're always looking for more, just from a membership standpoint. We're things are always growing. We're obviously planning for the current school year, hoping that kind of goes uninterrupted, as we say, and that we can kind of really look at last year and grow that, as well as from a support perspective. Always looking for whether it's individuals, foundations, corporations who can give back to Friendship Circle in some capacity, in whatever capacity. And some that means, items, some that means, we have, as you recall, we had an auction at our event in where was it? It was in May.
Yes.
So we had that then, and so those are items that we're always kind of looking for throughout the year, as well as just overall contributions. It really kind of helps the organization run. Our staff continue to grow to be able to manage the membership base and to ensure that the programs are as of utmost quality. And we really we've kind of made that reputation, I'd say, from the beginning of this. This was something that when we first started, a family actually said to us that she was so impressed with how we came, and it was really just the two of us at the time, and we were just hoping that this thing would take. But we came and met with this family, and the mom had a daughter who was in 9th grade at the time. She's now married with a child, and her brother who was on the autism spectrum, and she said how she'd seen so many organizations come in, give kind of like just a copied black and white flyer, and it just felt like some of these things that required attention didn't get the attention they needed, and they weren't as attractive, and so therefore they got people who really needed them, but no one who would just kind of like volunteer their time and try to like, oh, you know what, I'd like to participate. This looks like a real quality event. And she said that was just something that I saw that was different about what Friendship Circle was kind of meant to be. We gave some, promotional materials right away, and whether it was like a squishy ball or sunglasses or whatever, but just enough to be able to kind of like build the brand a little bit, and make it something that everyone should really want to be part of, because that's what it is. This isn't a service we provide. This is a community thing that we really need everyone to participate in.
Yeah, that's really neat. And so if somebody wanted to get more information detailed in terms of how to help with the supporting this community or organization, the website would be a good place for them to go.
Absolutely.
I would assume.
Yeah, the website, fcpgh.org. You can also, we have a YouTube channel where we have a number of our videos that we've made for Friends All Around events in years past. This past year I thought was the best one yet. Just a shameless plug there, but it kind of gives a good depiction of what we do on an annual basis. But our website, certainly fcpgh.org, is definitely a great space.
Great. And then in terms of this specific podcast audience, when we're thinking about folks with Down syndrome who are listening, or perhaps their caregivers who are listening, if they wanted to be a part of this is a place for them to be as well, just as we were saying, and part of the community.
Definitely. I mean, in the Pittsburgh area, we offer programs throughout. We have actually our South Hills kickoff is this evening, the orientation for that. But yeah, it's definitely, we're always looking for more members and everyone to kind of join. So
that's great. That's great. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast and sharing what is such a cool passion, right? You guys come into this without really, as you said, any background or experience with people with disabilities, and then yet here you are serving the community in such a wonderful way. So thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
And to our listeners, if there are things that you are doing in the community, especially those things that promote inclusion or things that help improve the lives of people with Down syndrome, please do reach out to me. I'd be glad to have you on the podcast as well. Or if you have any other topic you'd like us to discuss, medical, educational, otherwise, please do reach out to us, Down Syndrome Center at chp.edu. If you'd like to support what we do at the center, including this podcast, please go to givetochildrens.org/Down Syndrome Center. But until next time, bye-bye.